The distant hum of the colony's automated defense grid was as familiar to the settlers as the artificial sunrise over Liberty Outpost. For the 12,000 humans who called this corner of the galaxy home, it symbolized security, a quiet assurance that the universe's dangers were held at bay. That fragile peace shattered in an instant. Out of the void, the Zarkith Collective arrived. Their sleek, insectoid ships shimmered with a chitinous luster, descending upon Liberty Outpost like predators on helpless prey. There was no warning, no chance to negotiate. Plasma bolts rained down, tearing apart structures, vaporizing vehicles, and igniting chaos. Screams filled the air as settlers scrambled for cover, their meager militia hopelessly outmatched. In the colony's central hub, Ellen Cartwright, a young engineer, clutched a transmitter. "This is Liberty Outpost. We're under attack. Any ships in the vicinity? We need assistance." Her voice cracked, but her hands were steady, punching in emergency codes as explosions rocked the building around her. The comms flickered, and static hissed through her headset. There was no reply. Outside, the Zarkith ground forces landed, towering figures clad in biomechanical armor. Their segmented limbs moved with terrifying precision as they swept through the settlement, executing their grim purpose. They left behind a single message, etched into the smoldering ruins of the command tower: submit or perish. On Earth, the transmission from Liberty Outpost reached the United Terran Alliance's Central Command. In the war room, walls glowed with holographic projections of the colony's decimation. The room was silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on the assembled leaders. President Elaine Walker stood at the head of the table, her steely gaze scanning the data. "What do we know about the attackers?" General Conrad Hayes, a grizzled veteran of humanity's early skirmishes in space, stepped forward. "Zarkith Collective. First documented contact. Advanced tech, no history of diplomacy. They've been expanding aggressively in the outer systems." Walker nodded, her jaw tightening. "In Liberty Outpost? Survivors are minimal. Civilian casualties catastrophic." Hayes hesitated. "Madam President, their message was clear. They think we're weak." The room bristled. Walker straightened, her voice cold and resolute. "Weak? They'll learn otherwise." Far from Earth, Captain Maria Valdez watched the same transmission aboard the Resolute, her flagship. The sight of Liberty's destruction stoked a fire in her chest. Valdez was a soldier who had clawed her way up through the ranks, earning respect through her tactical brilliance and unyielding resolve. She was not the type to let such an affront go unanswered. "Status on fleet readiness?" she barked. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Darius Cole, rattled off the details. "We've got 3 battlecruisers, 2 frigates, and full fighter support within range. Reinforcements from Mars Command are 6 days out." Valdez frowned. 6 days is too long. "We hit them now, hard and fast. They need to understand who they're dealing with." Cole hesitated. "Captain, the Zarkith Tech. I've seen what they're capable of, Lieutenant. Now they'll see what we're capable of." The Resolute prepared to jump to Liberty's system, but Valdez knew this was more than a tactical operation. It was a statement. Humanity had faced extinction before. Plagues, wars, Earth's near collapse under the weight of its own hubris. Each time, they clawed back. That tenacity was woven into the fabric of their existence. The Zarkith had miscalculated. Before departing, Valdez addressed her crew over the ship's comm system. "The Zarkith think we're easy prey. They're wrong. This isn't just about Liberty Outpost. It's about who we are. We don't run. We don't bow. And we sure as hell don't let anyone dictate our fate. Today, we remind them why humanity survives." The speech rippled through the crew, igniting a shared purpose. Engineers triple-checked weapon systems, pilots ran combat drills, and the medical staff braced for the inevitable casualties. The tension was palpable, but it was tempered by resolve. They were going to war not just for revenge, but for survival. As the fleet entered the jump point, Valdez glanced at the holographic display of Earth's blue-green sphere. "Do not FCK with us," she muttered under her breath, a personal promise to the countless lives depending on their success. In Liberty's system, the Zarkith forces had begun stripping the outpost of resources, their disdain for human resistance evident in their complacency. They didn't see the Resolute and her fleet until it was too late. As humanity's warships emerged from the jump, their sleek hulls glinting under distant starlight, the Zarkith fleet scrambled to respond. Valdez issued the first command with chilling precision. All ships, open fire. Make them feel it. Railguns roared, missiles streaked through the void, and the Zarkith ships found themselves on the defensive for the first time. But the battle was far from over. The Zarkith might have underestimated humanity, but they wouldn't make that mistake twice. Back on Earth, Walker watched the live feed of the conflict. She felt a mixture of pride and dread as human ingenuity and courage faced off against an implacable enemy. The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity would never go quietly. The void shimmered with the aftermath of battle as the Resolute and her fleet repositioned. Captain Maria Valdez stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the tactical display. The Zarkith ships were regrouping, their formation tightening into a defensive sphere. They had been caught off guard, but their response was swift and calculated. The air on the bridge buzzed with tension, the crew moving with the quiet efficiency born of relentless training. "They're adapting," Lieutenant Darius Cole reported, his voice clipped. "Enemy fleet repositioning to counter our forward push. They've deployed drones, lots of them." Valdez nodded, her sharp gaze scanning the holographic map. The drones formed a swirling screen around the Zarkith ships, a pulsating cloud of metallic death. Their strategy was clear: draw the humans into close-range combat, where their superior numbers and firepower would overwhelm them. "Maintain distance," Valdez ordered. "They want us to overcommit. Let's make them think we're playing along." The bridge crew sprang into action, relaying her commands. The Resolute's engines hummed as the ship adjusted course, pulling back just enough to appear cautious. On her display, Valdez could see the Zarkith advancing, emboldened by what they likely perceived as a retreat. She allowed herself a faint smile. "Deploy the decoys," she said. From the fleet's underbelly, a dozen stealth drones launched, each mimicking the radar signature of a human warship. The decoys moved in erratic patterns, simulating a disorganized retreat. The Zarkith, ever eager to exploit weakness, surged forward, their drones splitting off to pursue the false targets. Valdez leaned closer to the tactical display. "Now!" The Resolute and her sister ships opened fire, unleashing a coordinated barrage. Railgun rounds tore through the void, each projectile accelerated to hypersonic speeds. Missiles spiraled toward the advancing Zarkith, their trajectories weaving to evade the alien countermeasures. The enemy's drones, exposed and vulnerable, disintegrated in fiery bursts. The Zarkith's formation faltered as they scrambled to recover. "Direct hit on 2 frigates," Cole reported, a hint of satisfaction in his tone. "Their shields are down." Valdez didn't pause. "Target their command ship. Cut off the head." The fleet's weapon system zeroed in on the largest Zarkith vessel, its jagged silhouette dominating the tactical display. The ship's shields flared as it absorbed the initial onslaught, but the sustained fire began to take its toll. Explosions rippled across its surface, spilling debris and atmosphere into the void. Just as victory seemed within reach, the Zarkith struck back. A massive energy wave emanated from their command ship, disabling half of the human fleet's targeting systems. On the bridge of the Resolute, screens flickered and alarms blared. "EMP burst!" Cole shouted. "We've lost targeting on secondary systems." Valdez's mind raced. The Zarkith were gambling everything on this counterattack. If she hesitated, they would regain the upper hand. Her crew looked to her, their trust and fear palpable. "Switch to manual targeting," she ordered. "Focus all firepower on their flagship. Take it down." The Resolute shuddered as the Zarkith returned fire, plasma bolts slamming into the ship's reinforced hull. The bridge lights flickered, and the acrid scent of overheating circuits filled the air. Valdez remained unflinching, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Keep firing. Don't stop until they're ashes." Her crew obeyed with grim determination, manually adjusting the ship's weaponry. The Resolute's railguns fired in rapid succession, each shot striking the Zarkith flagship with pinpoint precision. The alien ship's shields collapsed, its armored hull peeling away under the relentless assault. Then, the breakthrough came. A final railgun round pierced the Zarkith flagship's reactor core. The resulting explosion was blinding, a starburst of fire and debris that consumed the surrounding Zarkith ships. The bridge of the Resolute fell silent as the crew watched the display, the enemy fleet scattering in disarray. "They're retreating," Cole said, disbelief mingling with relief. "We did it." Valdez allowed herself a moment to breathe, her shoulders relaxing slightly. But her expression remained hard. "Not yet. Pursue them. Make sure they understand." The fleet surged forward, hounding the retreating Zarkith ships. One by one, the alien vessels were picked off, their wreckage drifting silently through the void. Only a handful managed to escape into hyperspace, their pride and numbers shattered. As the last of the enemy disappeared, Valdez finally stood down. She turned to her crew, her voice steady but firm. "Good work. Begin recovery operations. I want a full damage report within the hour." The bridge erupted in subdued cheers, the tension breaking like a dam. Valdez stepped back, letting her crew savor the victory even as her own mind turned to the next steps. The Zarkith had underestimated humanity, but this was only the beginning. They would regroup, adapt, and come back stronger. She needed to be ready. In the quiet of her quarters, Valdez stared out at the debris field. The cost of the battle weighed on her, but it was a burden she had long accepted. Humanity's survival had always demanded sacrifice. She reached for her personal terminal and began drafting her report to Earth, her final words encapsulating the day's lesson. "They thought we were weak. They thought they could break us. They were wrong." The remnants of the Zarkith fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a battlefield littered with debris and silence. On the bridge of the Resolute, the weight of the moment settled over the crew. Victory had been hard-won, but it felt fragile, a fleeting reprieve in the shadow of a looming storm. Captain Maria Valdez stood at the central console, her expression unreadable as her gaze swept across the holographic display of the aftermath. Reports trickled in from the fleet. Casualties were significant, with 2 frigates lost and hundreds of lives sacrificed to secure the win. Repair crews worked tirelessly to stabilize critical systems, their efforts mirrored in the somber determination of the bridge staff. Despite the muted cheers and the quiet pride visible on every face, Valdez knew this was no time for celebration. "Lieutenant Cole," she said, her voice low but firm, "ensure our recovery teams prioritize black box retrieval. I want every scrap of data we can salvage from the wreckage. The Zarkith will be back, and I want to be ready." "Yes, Captain," Cole replied, already coordinating the effort. His movements were brisk, but there was a tightness around his eyes that spoke of exhaustion. Like everyone else, he had poured every ounce of himself into the battle. Valdez allowed herself a moment of stillness, her fingers tracing the edge of the console. She couldn't afford to dwell on the lives lost or the sacrifices made. Not yet. There would be time for mourning later, if the Zarkith gave them that luxury. Far away on Earth, the news of the victory reached President Elaine Walker and her council. The war room, usually a hub of tension and controlled chaos, erupted in cautious optimism as reports streamed in. Walker watched the holographic projection of the battlefield, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. Despite the encouraging outcome, her features remained grave. "Maria did it," General Conrad Hayes said, a rare smile breaking through his usual stoic demeanor. "She pushed him back." "For now," Walker replied, her tone clipped. "This was a statement, not an end. The Zarkith don't strike me as the type to lick their wounds and disappear. We need to prepare for their response." Hayes nodded, his expression sobering. "Agreed. But this buys us time. Time to shore up defenses, expand the fleet, and build alliances. The galaxy is watching. They'll know now that humanity isn't to be trifled with. They'll also know we're vulnerable," Walker countered. This was one victory. If the Zarkith escalate, it could draw in other opportunistic factions. "We're strong, but we're not invincible," She paused, her eyes narrowing as she stared at the image of Liberty Outpost's ruins. We need to send a message, not just to the Zarkith, but to everyone. They need to understand that humanity doesn't just endure. We fight back. On board the Resolute, Valdez reflected on a similar sentiment as she addressed her crew via ship-wide comms. Standing in the command center, her uniform still scorched and worn from the day's battle, she spoke with quiet intensity. You fought bravely today. Against an enemy that thought us weak, you proved them wrong. You showed them what it means to stand for something greater than yourself, something worth protecting. But this fight isn't over. The Zarkith will return, and when they do, they'll find us stronger, smarter, and more united than ever. Her words resonated throughout the ship, stirring pride and resolve in equal measure. For the crew, this was more than a victory. It was a reminder of their purpose. They weren't just soldiers or engineers or pilots. They were humanity's shield, its spear, and its voice in the cold expanse of the galaxy. Meanwhile, deep within the Zarkith Collective's territory, their leaders convened in a vast, dimly lit chamber. The air buzzed with tension as holograms of the defeated fleet flickered before them. The room, filled with the sharp clicking of alien mandibles and the low hum of biomechanical devices, was heavy with unease. The humans are more formidable than we anticipated, one of the Zarkith generals hissed, his voice a blend of mechanical modulation and organic rasp. Their resourcefulness is unsettling. They are primitive, another argued, her mandibles snapping in agitation. This was a lucky victory, nothing more. We should strike again before they have a chance to fortify and risk further humiliation. The Zarkith overlord's voice silenced the chamber. His massive form loomed over the gathering, his bioarmor pulsing faintly with energy. No, humanity is not the prey we thought them to be. They are something else, something dangerous. There was a murmur of dissent, but none dared challenge the overlord directly. His many eyes gleamed as he studied the holographic display of the Resolute. We will regroup, observe, learn their weaknesses, and when we strike again, it will be decisive. Back aboard the Resolute, Valdez sat alone in her quarters, the faint hum of the ship's engines a constant backdrop. The battle's weight pressed down on her, the adrenaline fading to leave an ache of exhaustion and loss. She stared at a small photo on her desk, a picture of her younger self in uniform, standing beside her parents on Earth. They had passed years ago, but their pride and belief in her still guided her every decision. She reached for the console and began drafting her after-action report. The words flowed steadily, recounting the events with precision and clarity. But at the end, she hesitated. Her fingers hovered over the keys as she considered what to say. Finally, she typed, "We are not invincible. We are not without fear, but we are unbreakable. Let this serve as a reminder to the Zarkith and to all who would threaten us. Do not mistake our kindness for weakness, our patience for passivity, or our humanity for fragility. We will not bow. We will not break. Do not FCK with us." She sent the report and leaned back, exhaling slowly. Outside her window, the stars stretched endlessly into the void, each one a reminder of the vastness they had yet to conquer and the battles they had yet to fight. Valdez didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing with certainty. Humanity would face it together, unyielding and defiant.